of genetic genealogy. Could a single discarded cigarette be the thing that finally closes a case that sat open for over 4 decades? The FBI used investigative genetic genealogy to narrow the suspect pool to one of 4 brothers. Among them was a man named James Unick. FBI agents then conducted surveillance and collected a discarded cigarette butt from Unick. The DNA recovered from the cigarette matched both the 2003 CODIS profile and the biological evidence from Sarah's clothing. The match was definitive, linking Unick directly to the crime scene evidence that had waited 42 years for a name. James Oliver Unick had lived on Cloverdale Boulevard at the time of the crime, in the same small town within walking distance of the alley where Sarah was taken. He was arrested on July 22nd, 2024, at his home in Willows, Glenn County, California. At trial, Unick initially denied any knowledge of Sarah. He then shifted his account entirely, claiming that she had approached him and that the encounter was consensual. The prosecution demolished this narrative by proving that Sarah was in Santa Rosa at the exact time Unick described the supposed encounter occurring. His timeline did not hold up. His story fell apart under the weight of its own contradictions. The jury deliberated approximately 2 hours before returning a guilty verdict on February 13th, 2026. What would have been Sarah's 57th birthday? Courtroom attendees said happy birthday to Sarah as they filed out of the room. Her mother, Susan, who had waited 44 years for this moment, was present for the verdict. Unick faces a mandatory sentence of life without parole at his sentencing hearing, which is scheduled for April 23rd, 2026. After 44 years, the town of Cloverdale and Susan Gear finally had both an answer and a conviction to go with it. That case ended with a courtroom delivering justice on the victim's birthday. But the next case would never see a courtroom at all, because the person responsible had already been convicted of 2 other brutal incidents, served less than 9 years, and then slipped away for good. Karen Persifield. Karen Persifield was 25 years old, a young mother from Ohio whose life had already been marked by hardship. Her children had been placed in an orphanage after their father was imprisoned, and she was struggling to find her footing. In 1976, she traveled to Santa Cruz, California to visit her sister, hoping to put some distance between herself and everything that had gone wrong back home. Her daughter, Meadow Shumake, was still a small child at the time and was not told her mother had been taken from her until she hired a private investigator in 1988, 12 years after it happened. For over a decade,
Oh, what's up, the panel?
knowing the truth about what happened
Yeah, I'm back.
gave birth to her.
What up, Doc?
Karen was last seen having a drink at the Bayview Hotel in Aptos before leaving after an argument with her mother. On May 28th, 1976, her body was found in a ravine near Aptos Village Park. She had been stabbed twice in the chest.
Thank you.
The trail of physical evidence was
How y'all been
and
doing?
the investigation quickly stalled. A man named Richard Anthony Somerhalder, nicknamed Blue, was named a person of interest in 1976. Investigators looked at him closely, but could not build a case strong enough to charge him. The forensic tools available at the time were simply insufficient. What happened next makes this case particularly difficult to process. Just months after being flagged as a person of interest,
I'm gonna get back over here and get back to drawing this stuff.
Somerhalder was arrested for the deaths of Vicky Bezor, 31, and Mary Gorman, 21, who were beaten and stabbed after he asked them for a ride. He was convicted on both counts and received 2 consecutive 5 years to life sentences. Despite the severity of those crimes and the fact that he had already been flagged in connection with Karen's case, He was paroled after just 8.5 years behind bars. His system released him. After his release, he relocated across the country to Bauchito, Oklahoma, where he lived quietly and without incident until passing away from cancer on May 12, 1994. He never served a single day for what he did to Karen Persifield. How do you confirm a suspect who has been gone for decades, whose body has already been buried, and whose DNA was never entered into any law enforcement database? In 2019, Santa Cruz County investigators developed a male DNA profile from the original evidence collected back in
I
1976.
appreciate that, Phantom. Take it easy. You have a good one,
had been
too.
dead for 25 years at that point, and his genetic information existed in no law enforcement database anywhere in the country. The trail appeared to end at his grave. In the fall of 2023, the preserved evidence was submitted to Othram as a last resort. Their forensic genetic genealogy team traced the DNA through living relatives, constructing family trees that led directly back to Richard Anthony Somerhalder. Even though the man himself was gone, his relatives' DNA confirmed the connection beyond any reasonable question. The case was officially announced as solved on April 3rd, 2025. No charges could be filed. It was exceptionally cleared. A designation meaning the investigators are satisfied they identified the perpetrator. But prosecution is impossible. Somerhalder came from a family with deep ties to criminal activity. He was the half-brother of Johnny Lee Somerhalder, the convicted triple offender and notorious Grim Reaper's motorcycle club leader who remains imprisoned to this day at Solano State Prison in California. The pattern of harm ran through the family like a thread. Meadow, now sober after years struggling with methamphetamine,
Take it easy, Maxwell.
noted the bitter irony of the resolution. There is no headstone for her mother. The family does not even know where Karen's ashes are. But the man who took her life has a headstone with his name carved into it. That single detail sat with Meadow long after the official announcement was made. She finally had a name and confirmation of what she had long suspected. But the imbalance of it all, the fact that a convicted offender received more dignity in death than her mother ever did, was something she carried with her every day. That case closed without a trial, because the suspect had already passed away. But the next one would involve someone who hid in plain sight for over 2 decades, attending family dinners, holidays, and vacations with the victim's own daughter, all while carrying the secret of what he had done. If you've made it this far and enjoy deep dives into the most shocking criminal cases, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to press the bell icon. Leslie Prier. On the morning of May 2nd, 2001, Leslie Ann Prier failed to show up for work. This was extremely out of character. Leslie was the kind of person who never missed a commitment. When her boss could not reach her, he called her husband Carl, who went by Sandy. Together, they drove to the family home on Drummond Avenue in Chevy Chase, Montgomery County, Maryland. What they found inside was a scene of total devastation. The home was splattered with blood, furniture overturned, and a blood-soaked rug dragged across the foyer. Leslie's body was found upstairs in the master bathroom, face down, with numerous lacerations to the back of her head. She had been struck repeatedly and strangled. 3 DNA samples from an unknown male were found at the scene, including skin cells under her fingernails, indicating she fought back against her attacker with everything she had. Leslie was 49 years old. She was an advertising production worker and library.
So who's the one viewer?
Born into a military family of 8 siblings, she studied journalism at the University of Florida, married Sandy in 1974, and had a daughter named Lauren in 1977. She was the kind of person who held her community together quietly. Her absence was felt immediately by everyone who knew her. Investigators initially focused on Sandy Prier. He failed a polygraph test, which cast a long shadow over him for the rest of his life. But DNA testing excluded him as the source of the evidence found at the scene. Despite being cleared forensically, Sandy lived the remainder of his years under a cloud of public suspicion. Neighbors whispered, relationships frayed. He passed away in 2017 without ever knowing who had taken his wife from him. What makes this case even more unsettling is what happened on January 30th, 2002. A neighbor submitted a tip to investigators naming Eugene Gligor, Lauren Prier's ex-boyfriend, as a possible suspect. There is no evidence this tip was ever followed up on or that Gligor was interviewed. For 22 years, that name sat buried in the case file. The answer was right there, written down in ink, on a piece of paper that someone had taken the time to submit. Nobody acted on it. Nobody followed up. Nobody interviewed Gligor. The tip simply collected dust, while the case remained classified as unsolved. Would a single water bottle at an airport be enough to close a case that had been open for more than 2 decades? In September of 2022, cold case detectives submitted evidence to Othram. The enhanced DNA profile was uploaded to Family Tree DNA's database. The highest match traced to a family line in Romania. In June of 2024, Detective Tara Augustin recognized the surname Gligor from the original case file. Gligor's DNA had never been collected despite prior arrests for weapons possession, driving under the influence, and theft. Detectives followed him to Washington Dulles International Airport on June 9, 2024, where customs officials assisted in the operation. Gligor drank from a water bottle and discarded it. Within a week, his DNA confirmed a match to the crime scene evidence. This was the first case solved using familial DNA in Montgomery County in Maryland state history. Eugene Theodore Gligor, of Romanian descent, had dated Lauren Prier during high school around 1998 and became close to the entire Prier family. He attended dinners, holidays, and family trips. After the breakup, he remained in Lauren's social circle. Weeks after Leslie's passing, Gligor offered Lauren condolences at a restaurant in Washington, speaking as if nothing had happened. He skipped the funeral entirely, instead taking a sudden road trip to Portland, Oregon. Gligor was arrested on June 18, 2024. He pled guilty to second-degree charges on May 7, 2025. On August 28, 2025,